Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're sitting in my dining room with one of the fastest guests so far, definitely faster than I can run. Our guest today has been riding and racing motorcycles in the Midwest since the age of 4. With more accolades than I care to list, we'll be able to add Passion Pod alumni to the list after today. Welcome to the show, Josh Remter. It's Remter, right?
Yep.
Cool. Awesome. Who are you and what are you passionate about?
So, obviously, I'm Josh Remter. I'm passionate about racing and just having fun and doing it whatever you really feel like doing.
Yeah, dude. I mean, too many people get caught up in the grind and they go to like, you know, you're in high school and you're looking, okay, well, what do I want to do with the rest of my life? You get those people that straight up go, well, what's earnings like for which careers?
Yeah,
and then they
sure.
pick it that way, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And then all these people are going into accounting, which maybe some people like it, but I hate doing taxes.
I don't know about that.
Yeah, right? How can people best follow you, get in contact, and see who you are outside of this conversation?
I guess the biggest platform I have is Instagram, just Josh Remter, no spaces or anything like that. I also have a TikTok that's morely just fun, I guess. Not really about me, just like posting whatever.
Sure.
And then YouTube, I do a little bit on there, haven't in a while, but trying to get into like vlogging and stuff like that.
Sure. What kind of vlogging? Like what would people expect to see? Because your page has a lot of like riding motorcycles and stuff, but like
Right.
what would people expect to see?
I guess, yeah, dirt bikes, snowmobiles, traveling around, doing like things related to all that.
Sure. You race snowmobiles too?
Don't race snowmobiles, just like backcountry riding, I guess.
Okay,
like
cool.
mountain riding.
Yeah, I know Leah Bauer was a guest on the show.
Yep.
She's someone we're both familiar with. She was just up in Alaska for that race, and then her sled like caught on fire.
I saw
or
that.
something.
That's
That was
crazy.
insane. It was supposed to be a 2,600 mile
Right.
race. Like, I don't understand how people do that. I've never ridden a snowmobile.
Really?
Yeah, which is
And you live in Wisconsin?
I hadn't ridden a four wheeler until like 2 or 3 years ago.
Wow.
And I'm gonna be 32 in May. I went my whole life without riding one. It's like mind blowing.
Are you from Wisconsin though?
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Yeah, my parents moved here into this actual house when I was 2. Like, they moved up here from Antioch, Illinois. So we were Midwest always. They moved here when I was 2. And then when I got divorced, I sold my first house and I bought the same house I grew up in from my dad. So this is like,
Wow.
yeah, I'm a super townie. This is where I'm from. And my parents have a cabin, or my dad now, I guess, because my parents are divorced, but they have a cabin up north kind of by Cable, up in that rain. So like everyone has four-wheelers.
Yeah.
And I still had never ridden a four-wheeler.
Wow.
Yeah, but my dad's is retired now, but he was a fisheries technician for the DNR, so he's
Okay.
very much like a conservationist kind of person. So
Mm-hmm.
like motors and stuff where it's supposed to be quiet and peaceful, he's not one of those people. Anyways, what's the story for the first time? Because age 3 or 4, it blows my mind because my kids are 5 and just about 9. I cannot imagine them on a motorcycle. What's the story of the first time you rode a motorcycle?
Oh, the first time, I guess it was probably in my yard. I had training wheels on this like super old, I think it was a Yamaha, to be honest.
They have training wheels for motorcycles?
Yep. Yeah.
Sick.
And they're big like dirt bike tires, I guess. They're pretty big, but
Yeah.
yeah. I guess the earliest memory I have was riding that thing through my yard, and I ended up hitting the trampoline.
Oh no.
Didn't like never stopped or turn. It's just a big joke now, but
Was that before you could ride a bicycle then?
yeah, I think I had I was riding and racing before I actually took the training wheels off my pedal bike.
You were racing before that too.
Mhm.
That's like mind-blowing to me that you would be able to control a motorcycle before you could do that. That's great. So who got when you're that age, it's not you that is vocal about like, hey mom and dad, I really want to do this. Like obviously one of them got you into it.
Yep.
Why? Who was it? What was the motivation behind that?
So my dad got my brother in the racing when he was, I believe, 5 or 6.
How much older is he then?
He's 5 years older than me.
Oh,
so they were
okay.
already doing
Yeah.
it for, I guess, basically when I was born, and then the 4 years before, like up to then.
Sure. How old were you for your first race?
4.
4.
Yeah.
And that, I guess, I don't know how the divisions or any of that stuff works. Was it kind of like you were racing because they were already taking your brother to a race at that
Right.
same race and you're just
Yeah.
like a different division or whatever?
Basically, yeah, just different classes, different times.
how's the like? What's the youngest class? I can't picturing one person at the age of 4 racing is like ridiculous.
So they've got like Pee Wee, Pee Wee Junior, and then Pee Wee
like
Senior.
with T-ball.
Right. Yeah, it's basically the same concept. They just have younger,
Sure.
and like I don't know, like shorter races, and they'll cut the track a little bit off. So then you end up like not doing some of the technical spots.
Yeah, there's no jumps then, I wouldn't assume. It's just like
No.
rollers and then
Yep.
turning to the left.
Right.
Kind of a
Yeah,
situation.
they'll like cut the big jumps out and stuff like that.
How long is a race like that? Like where do they start at? Are they like little 10-minute things, 5-minute things?
That young, to be honest, I probably don't remember, but I would say 10 minutes or less.
Do they
Because like a big bike race, it's usually about 10 minutes, 10
Sure.
to 15.
Sure. Do you still, I mean, obviously going to races, do they still have those classes?
Yep.
Like, is that still common to see?
Yeah, and actually just recently they started to come out with all these electric vehicles and bikes and four-wheelers, whatever. Now they have electric dirt bikes for like little kids. So
Dude.
it's pretty funny. They're like flying down the track, but you can't hear them at all.
Oh, yeah, sure,
Just
sure.
moving
So it's all
around.
quiet. When I was growing up, they would have those little like Jeeps and stuff for kids.
Yep.
You know what I'm talking
Yeah,
about? Where
yeah,
like,
like Power Wheels.
Yeah, like the Power Wheels. Like that was about as like ridiculous as it got. Okay, well, where are you from originally? What's like your home track?
Greenville, Wisconsin.
Where's that by?
That is just outside of Appleton.
Oh, okay. And how many races are there around? I guess in like a typical year, how many races are within your vicinity? Within, I don't know, say Wisconsin, within a 5-hour drive, say, or
Okay.
whatever. How many
Yeah, so
races would you expect to go?
They have like District 16. That's Wisconsin, and then Upper Michigan.
Oh, okay.
And we would
Like the
travel.
UP.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, we would travel around, do those races. I believe I'm probably gonna answer this wrong, but I believe there's like 17. Maybe there's only 17 that I've considered doing, but
Sure.
it starts in like late April and it runs till October.
And those were like every single weekend, basically, type
Yep.
situation?
And sometimes there's 2 different races on each weekend. Some
Sure.
are points. I don't think they run 2 points races on the same weekend, but
Yeah.
they'll run 2 different races.
Was your dad already like into motorcycling before that? Did he race or ride
No.
Harleys or anything?
As far as I know, he might have had a motorcycle before, but he never raced or anything like that.
I mean, it's a super expensive sport. Why did he? Do you have any idea why he wanted to get your brother into it? That's a lot
To
of
be
money.
honest, no, I do not know exactly why he did it.
Not only that, but it's dangerous. Like my
Right.
parents wouldn't let me play football or anything, let alone ride a dirt bike.
Yeah, to be honest, I don't even know why he chose that. It is expensive though.
Yeah. Did you live kind of out in the country where you
Yeah.
could ride on your own property?
Yeah, my parents ended up building a house right next to my grandparents, and they had a farm that was like, they have like all this land, and they ended up giving like my dad a little chunk of it to build a track. So
Oh,
we've had a
cool.
track out there since like '97, I think.
What did they do for a living growing up? Like, what did your parents do for a living?
So my dad, he's a operator,
Oh,
and he
what?
runs heavy equipment.
Oh, so that makes sense as far as to be able to
Yeah.
even make the tracks.
So yeah, he'll like bring a dozer home or a backhoe, whatever he needs, and then build us a track in a weekend.
And he
And
just
just-
use it from work type situation?
Yeah, yep.
Okay.
Yeah, he's pretty lucky that they let him just take whatever.
I would say so. I mean, riding is super, super expensive. Did they have sponsors and stuff for your brother too?
Yeah, so
Like-
I guess basically my brother, he ended up getting a lot of sponsors from like I guess who my dad works for now. He would give him money, and then like all the dealers,
Kind
They
of like
would
how
end up-
parents would go to work with their like cookie sheets to order for
Kinda,
Boy Scouts
yeah.
and Girl Scouts, that
Yep.
type of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. Sick. If you didn't have money going into it, like say, like I told you, I have a 5-year-old and my older one's just about 9. If I want to get my 9-year-old into racing, this equipment's a lot. If you had to guess how much money it would cost to get the bike she would need, plus like the equipment she would need, approximately how much money does that cost?
I guess you don't need a brand new bike if you're just getting into it. So
Sure.
you could spend maybe like $1,000 if you're younger, so you're getting a smaller bike.
Right. Yeah.
And then the gear, I guess you definitely don't want to cheap out on gear. Like helmet,
Yeah.
you don't want to miss out on that.
Yeah.
But probably like a couple $1,000.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, not only that, but then you have to have a trailer and everything else to move things around
Right.
to. When you go to the events, is it like a festival where people like camp and stuff, or they all just like do they have a hotel in the area that's like designated for everyone?
There's
coming?
just like campgrounds surrounding the entire track, like the pits, I guess you want to call it.
Sure.
And then you pay for camping too, so you end up like just staying right at the track.
That's usually how people do it. Is they have
Yep.
like their RVs and all that type of stuff.
Yeah. So you like a lot of people, they would have like motorhomes, and now it's like just like crazy how much money is all involved in the sport, because
Well,
like everyone trying to is be bigger than the next guy. So they're like, I don't know, it's pretty wild. You'll see people showing up to the track with like semi trailers and stuff now.
Yeah, no, I mean it's insane. When I mean talking to Leah about it too. It's which for her sport in particular, she races snowmobiles. In case anyone listening wasn't familiar with that episode, but there's not a lot of money to be made though, like from it, right? Like with motocross, the only thing I ever see was like Travis Pastrana and stuff, like X Games type stuff. But there's not a lot of media coverage or anything, is
No,
there?
not at all.
So there's not really a lot of money to be won. It's
No, I mean
just
mostly
for fun, really, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I guess like even like the professionals, they don't make that much money from winning races. They're gonna make most of their money from their sponsorships and endorsements, like energy drinks or whatever. Really.
How come they want to like even sponsor him though? Like, because there's no media. The reason that people will sponsor somebody is because they get that brand in front of people. But if it's not on TV, if it's not, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, why do they even put money into that?
I guess for like the indoor series that they have, those are covered on like NBC, and it used to be Fox Sports. But the outdoors, I think you have to subscribe to like some streaming platform to get those ones.
ESPN 12.
Yeah, something like that. It used to be always on Speed, but Speed's
Sure.
not a thing anymore.
What's the biggest indoor track that's in like the Midwest? I'm not even familiar with any of them.
As far as I know, there's only like one, and that's Cedar Lake Arena. And there's also one in Illinois. I think that's a newer one.
Sure.
But like for the professionals, they like rent out baseball fields and football fields, stuff like that.
Yeah, but how do they make the track in the football field without just destroying the field?
I think they lay down, I don't know if it's plywood or like matting.
And then they take bulldozers and bring in all the dirt?
Yep.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's all done in like one weekend. I mean, they do a lot of the track building the week before, but
Sure.
yeah.
I mean, that's been happening with skateboarding now too, because skateboarding is becoming like a massive industry, and so like Street League is like the big thing, and there's X Games and stuff, and they'll come in and pour concrete for just the contest
That's crazy.
to like, you know what I mean, to like throw a big event. You look at like the X Games skate parks and stuff, like those are within the stadiums and the same thing, and like the baseball fields, football fields, they're not staying there, and they're like pouring all that just for the one day event. It I don't know, it blows my mind, because within skateboarding, outside of like X Games or Street League, which are like the two main contests that there's any kind of media coverage, there's like no money to be made. Like everybody's poor. Nobody makes any money. You know what I mean?
Guess they probably make most of their money through like endorsements as well.
Yeah, but
really.
only the top pros that are in those contest circuits.
I suppose, yeah.
Nobody else does. That's the funny part, is like I've interviewed pro skateboarders and stuff, and to me, pro skateboarders are like, you know, heroes and idols, and I think they're celebrities, even though realistically they're not. You know what I mean?
They're just
And,
normal people.
dude, and most of them don't make any more money than I do.
Right.
Because they're, you know what I mean? Unless you're Nyjah Houston or you're like Rob Dyrdek, you know, unless you get to like celebrity status like that, there are hundreds of pros. There's probably less than 10 that I would consider comfortably like have their finances comfortable.
Yeah.
Everybody else is just like scraping by, you know. It's like the thing that you hear about all the time within skateboarding, especially with people in the Midwest, is the only way to make it, which realistically means you can live off skateboarding maybe if you don't have kids till you're 30, is you move out to California and live in somebody's closet. You know what I mean? You have like 5 guys rent one apartment and that's it.
That used to be like a huge, I guess the only way that people would get big racing motocross too, they'd say, oh, you got to go to California where all these like pros are watching and all these pro teams are like staying and racing.
Sure.
And then I guess with social media, that just kind of like opened up a bunch of doors and let everyone basically stay where they are now.
Dude, I mean, that's the whole thing, right? So for people that don't really seem, I'm not trying to talk down to people that don't get it. They don't own businesses. They don't understand how marketing and stuff works necessarily because they've never like given a whole lot of thought to it. Not that they couldn't understand. They just haven't put the time and energy into thinking about it. The reason pros and stuff make money is because it's for entertainment purposes. People will want to watch that. Therefore, when there's ads, that's where all the money comes from. That's why NFL players make as much money as they do, because a lot of people watch football games. So any of the sponsors and stuff, all those commercials go for a ton of money, right? So the same thing happens with like any of this stuff. Well, when social media comes in, that's like having your own TV channel. However many people pay attention to your Instagram or your Facebook or your TikTok or whatever your lane is, that's how you end up making money too, right? If somebody has 100,000 followers and they're like legitimate followers, they can kind of expect to make money,
Right.
because anything they post is getting in front of a lot of people. So any business owner, if they had any sense, any business sense at all, would be like, I would love it if they were wearing a t-shirt that said my brand. Right? Like that's kind of how it grows. So for people that think social media is not important, it isn't if it doesn't dictate your career at all. But if you're in an entrepreneurship setting, or if you're in some kind of creative, which is basically an entrepreneurship setting, or if you have to market yourself for your own contracts or sponsors, which again is an entrepreneurship setting, social media is huge.
I think one big misconception with social media and like having a lot of followers though is that, like you were just saying, pros, they're really not making any money. So like people think that, oh, you have like, I don't know, X amount of followers. They think that you're rich or like famous, or you're just like this godlike person, but you're really not.
Yeah, well, part of it is because a lot of these people don't have a lot of business sense. It's part of why I shouldn't say that's why they do what they do, but they got into what they're doing not because of money at all, and they didn't get into it with the idea that this was a business. Yeah. So a lot of these people, and I've talked with influencers and stuff about it, they don't really have a good perspective on like what their worth should be. They don't know how to leverage sponsors versus, I was talking to Dave Yaden on the show a few seasons back. He's won a couple Grammys, which is so sick. He's a songwriter and a pianist.
That's awesome.
And his numbers aren't crazy. They're like 47,000 or something on Instagram last time I checked. Nothing like nuts. But he was telling me off mic the kind of dollar amounts that the different sponsorships and stuff that he does are worth. You can make money. Yeah. If you know what you're doing with it and it's all like very legitimate, like growth within whatever, you can absolutely make money. If you have 100,000 followers, there's no reason you can't make a living off it. But yes, if you don't know what you're doing and you're just like throwing stuff out there, people could make 10 times as much or, a tenth as much, depending on how well they know how to leverage that thing. So anyways, getting back into what you were doing. So you've been racing since you were young. When you were young, it wasn't really your idea to race, obviously. But, with everyone praising you, you watching your older brother, you're idolizing him, I'm sure, to a certain degree, and wanting to do it. At what age were you where it was more consciously you that wanted to do it?
I would say not until I was like 17 or 18. I really wanted to do it.
Sure.
So I stopped racing back when I was like, I don't know if I was 7 or 8 years old. Yeah. My brother continued to race, but I would always be at the track every single weekend. I've always had a bike since then. Yeah. And I would always go riding with him, or we've always had a track behind our house. So I'd always be involved, but I never like competed on the weekends. I'd just go in there and watch, help out, do whatever. Yeah. But then when I was like 17 or 18 was when I was like, all right, I want to like start racing every single weekend again. Sure. And then I did that basically up until 2020, that like fall. Yeah. And then I ended up taking a job that basically took like all my time.
Sure. And we'll get to that. But why did you, if you were still having to be there on the weekends anyways, why didn't you want to race anymore? I mean, you were young, so it's hard to jog your memory, I'm sure. But like, how come you didn't have that fire?
I guess when I was younger, most of the races, like I was telling you, when I was like 5, they were like the last one of the night. Oh, sure. So it'd be like 9, 10 o'clock before you even go out there. I remember sitting up against the fence, like taking naps before I'd go on the line. Sure. Yeah. And I guess just lost interest.
Sure. But you would think that I get it, because that's when they want to have all the important races when people want to be at the track. Right. So it's kind of like the afterthought at that point. But still at that age, how many people would even be in that class? Because obviously that would be difficult to get your kid to even want to do it at that age, and the huge expense for it, and bringing them for a weekend, they don't want to do that. Like, how many kids were even in those races?
I would say probably only like anywhere around 10 to, I don't know, 5 to 10, maybe 15.
Sure.
But just this last couple of years, there's been like a ton of people just buying their kids' bikes and showing up to the races. It's pretty sweet. There's like 20 plus entries in all the like little kid classes.
Sure. I mean, still, this is such a small scale though, right? Because we're looking for the state.
Yeah.
And there's like 20 kids.
Yeah.
You know, versus you look at like basketball and like there's 12 teams that are 5-year-olds for the city. You know what I mean? Like, it's still like a small number of people. But through the pandemic and we're not going to talk politics, I never do on the show, but with inflation and how everything's has gone, and with how social gatherings and everything went away, things like outdoor sports
for sure
got way more attention and energy, and people had more money to throw at things like that, to hobby, you know, those types of hobbies. So I can see why more and more people got into it.
Yeah, when that whole thing went down, like there was bikes nowhere to be found.
Yeah,
people
well, because
like,
you couldn't find parts.
Yeah, that too. Yeah, just everyone was buying everything. They stopped production of a lot of bikes, and like I ended up driving all the way to Kentucky for the bike that I have now. It was a new bike, and it was like really no cheaper than buying a new one, but there's just nothing around.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was in the same way with skateboarding, where it's just like a lot of the factories in America, a lot of what we consume isn't made in America.
Yeah.
We are more focused on how can we control profit margins and stuff, rather than like protecting our country in case we needed it, which, you know, you can feel one way or another about it, but we are very dependent on imports in this country, which, you know, whatever. But when then all of a sudden we couldn't ship stuff in, me owning a skateboard shop, a lot of the factories that make those parts aren't in America. So I couldn't get parts, but the demand was bigger than ever. So I had people coming in saying like, oh, you must be making a ton of money. I'm like, dude, I would be.
Yeah.
If I could get the products, I would be making a lot of money. But unfortunately, I wasn't making a lot of money because I couldn't get products at all. There was 4 separate weeks during that summer of 2020. There were 4 separate weeks where I couldn't build a skateboard at all. I had 0 wheels.
Wow.
0 trucks. Like, just not even a selection, just none. And Zoomies, which everyone's familiar with because it's in every mall in America. There's 600 plus stores to that like corporate chain.
Yep.
They're not actual skateboard shops, right? It's like a clothing lifestyle store, but they sell skateboards, and a lot of kids get their first boards. Either way, they're the cash cow of the industry. They were sending people to my store because they didn't have enough parts to build a skateboard.
What the heck?
Yeah, if they couldn't get stuff, it was like, this just didn't exist.
How'd you overcome that?
Dude, well, thankfully, people are very, very loyal so your skateboard shop in our kind of world, it's kind of like your football team. You know, like everyone is very, very loyal to whatever their shop is, right? And with the way the pandemic hit, with all the unemployment, a lot of younger people are making more money than they made when they were working. Like waiters and stuff, they were. That's just, you know, and again, you can agree with it or not, and that's fine and beside the point, but they had more money to spend than they really needed to. Yeah. And people just wanted the shop to exist. You know, I saw a lot of people come in and specifically ask me, hey, what do you make the most money off of in your store? And I'd tell them, well, my apparel. It has the highest profit margin, and it advertises for me. It's the best thing. And they're like, cool, I just got, this check. I just got my stimulus check. I just got this. I'm going to buy some stuff from you.
That's awesome.
Dude, just because. And I'm not the only one that had that. Yeah, dude, a lot of businesses I saw, that type of thing happening, or people buying gift cards that they don't really need, but they're like, we just want to be able to help that get through. Because the problem is those PPP loans that were huge, those forgivable loans, they were gone immediately.
Oh, really? There's only like a certain amount of them?
Right. They were out of funding right away. So you know who got all that funding was the wealthy people or big business, because they already had accountants working for them. So they knew when they were, like, the applications were opening, and they knew to fill them out immediately and how to fill them out immediately and how to submit them right away. People like me, I don't have my own personal accountant.
Yeah, I suppose you're like one-man band.
Pretty much, man. Like, I have employees and I have like a shop team and stuff, but it's a small time thing.
Yeah.
Do I have people do my taxes? Yeah, because I don't want to worry about getting audited and stuff. Yeah. But that's like once a year I call them up like, hey, I need someone to do this. I don't have people to consistently do it. But eventually I did, make it through that, and my shop wasn't new at that point. It turns 8 next month already. So it was kind of established enough that it was like, we'll we'll make it through. I had some money that I had backed up savings to do other things with that unfortunately didn't go into that. And I make a stream of revenue from other things. So the show makes me a little bit of money. I also paint murals and stuff, so I make a little bit of money there. And I had other ways that I could like make it work. But yeah, it definitely was rough. Going back to racing, what was the first, I mean, you said there were only maybe 10 kids or whatever in a lot of those races growing up. When was the first time you like podiumed? Did you ever win any of the races when you were a kid? Do you have like little medals and stuff from back then?
Yeah, we have trophies like piled up in a couple of the rooms at our house. I don't even know how many of them are mine or how many are my brother's, to be honest, because there was at one point we had like 300 plus trophies in a room. They're just all like, that's what was in that room.
Sure.
My dad ended up taking them all apart, and then he kept all the like the little plaques off of them, or tags. Yeah. Which like said what it was and what place, and then he ended up taking all the stuff from the trophies and giving them back to the people that make them.
Sure. I guess that makes sense. I mean, the funny thing is there's certain sports like that where medals and trophies are given out at events constantly. So yeah, you'd have a trophy room or whatever, you stack those things up. But a lot of other things that people do, they never give trophies. You know what I mean? There's a lot of people who have 0 trophies at all.
Trophies
even
are
though
cool.
They do cool stuff.
They are definitely like, I would rather a trophy than money sometimes.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I forget, I'm blowing it, but there's someone in Chippewa, this older couple that makes trophies. I can't remember what their name is, but I throw skateboard contests and events and stuff a lot of times around. And in Chippewa, I do a contest usually every year. This was pre-COVID, before social gatherings. Anyways, and their sponsorship of the event, because I'll reach out and have people donate, so that way we can buy prizes and give stuff to the kids and stuff. And for them, they made trophies for the event. And dude, the kids were so stoked to win trophies for the skate contest, because that's really outside. I mean, on TV, everyone gets trophies, but at skate events, like around the Midwest, like trophies aren't a common thing for people to have. I don't know if I have any trophies that I like can think about. I think I got one for being a mathlete. Like I was good at math when I was growing up. That was like the only thing. We had that on like the mantle, but that was about it. So how young were you when you won your first? Do you recall? Was it before you can even remember you were already placing in these things?
I believe I was like 6 maybe.
Oh, okay. And then were you kind of like one of the top kids of your little age group for that couple of years?
I would say that I was just one of the few that was like always there.
Sure.
So I don't know. I think I just got lucky, and there was
luck favors that.
Yeah.
Sure.
There was no one at that one probably.
Yeah. Okay. But our coach mom dads, you know what I mean? Like kind of a big thing where in that, you know what I'm talking about with that term, right?
Yeah.
Is that pretty common in that industry?
For sure.
I feel like that would make you not want to ride.
They get a little crazy.
Were your parents kind of pushy like that, or not so much?
No. My dad did sometimes a little bit, because he was always putting in the effort more towards like my brother, never really towards me. But, because really they were always going to the races every weekend for my brother, and then I would be there obviously with. But then if my brother didn't like do his part, then my dad would get a little upset. But
well, I mean, they're investing a lot into it. Yeah,
it was never like some of the parents, they were like screaming at their kids and bad news.
Yeah, it's nuts. I mean, that's one thing. Like skateboarding was in the Olympics for the first time this last Summer Olympics, which was like huge media thing. So obviously a lot more people were going to get into skateboarding, and there was 2 sides to the argument. There's a lot of people that were excited about it because it was like, okay, we're going to get way more eyes and ears on skateboarding, which is the important part. But the other side was like, oh no, we're going to get all these coach dads at the skate park, like making their kid kickflip 30 times. Like, I don't want to have that. We want to escape that. That's where what you find in basketball and football and all that, which, I mean, I get it, but I don't get it. In my opinion, the vast majority of these people are not going to do anything with that skill set. So you need to keep it fun. At a certain point, you get to an age group where it's like, okay, everyone wants to take it seriously. That's cool. But not everyone involved wants it to be, you know what I mean? Yeah. They're there to have fun. That's how I think there should almost be separate. Like when I got to high school, I played basketball from 5 all the way till I was in high school every year, right? I just wasn't good, but I played every year and I practiced a lot. I just sucked. But when I got there, it was like, I know that no matter how much I practice, if I made the JV team, I would never play. You know what I mean? So I just like couldn't play, which sucked. I thought that was very defeating, and that I could go on a long rabbit hole of how I feel about that. But I really think they should have just fun divisions.
That's how it really should always be.
That's what I'm saying. Fun. Well, and it's okay to have like people who really want to compete, But, you know, just like in college where there's like intramural stuff that it's more just fun based, it blows my mind that we don't have that for high school kids.
Yeah.
It's like the last amount of time that you can just be a kid, and we don't give that option. We basically tell kids you're not good enough, which like to me blows my mind. Why was it that you wanted to, well, actually, before I get to that, I want to know just the summary, because I don't need to talk about your brother forever, but you said he's raced like forever. Does he still race? What?
So basically up until, I want to say it was like 2013 or 2014, he had a knee injury that like was from racing snowmobiles. And then
sure. He did both?
Yep.
Okay.
That ended up ending basically his motocross career, because before that he was trying to go pro for a while, but then yeah, that just put a big halt on everything.
Was it ACL or what was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one of like most common thing ever. That's a super common skateboarding injury that I somehow avoided, and now I'm like, I think I'm in the clear because I've slowed down and I don't do impact stuff. But
yeah,
I don't know. Yeah. Who knows? What does he do for a living now?
He does what is it, like conveyor belt technician?
Oh, sure.
Like
Still working with machinery and stuff.
Yeah, heavy duty black belts.
Sure. Were you working on bikes and stuff since you were a kid?
Yeah, I'd always be there at the track with my dad, helping him wrench on his stuff, and
sure,
just always was around it.
Did it like pique your interest to work on that kind of
sure.
stuff from
Yeah.
like a fairly young age?
Yeah, that was actually what I wanted to do before I ended up doing what I do now.
Okay.
Because I wanted to go to school and be like a pro motocross mechanic, because I never thought I was good enough to be a professional
Sure.
motocross racer, so I was just gonna be there to do that.
Well, I mean, here's the thing though, like people, when you're a kid, you idolize the pros and you think that's what you want. Realistically, that's not what you want necessarily. No. What you want is to be able to ride and make a living. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily the fame, and not only that, but it, you know, you see a skewed version of what the reality is. The reality is those people have a ridiculous amount of pressure on them.
Yeah,
they don't have consistent money at all, and they don't get to dictate their schedule even a little bit. You know what I mean? And it's the same way with pro skateboarding, where I said like a lot of them make probably less money than I do, and I don't make a lot, but they it sounds great to go to Europe. Except when all of a sudden you realize you're 3 people to a hotel room, and you know, if you have a kid, you don't get to decide. You just have to be gone, but you don't get to dictate your schedule, which is really important. You know, when I talk to people that work for themselves, which is all the time, and I ask them what their favorite thing about it is, almost everyone can agree that it's the freedom that they have to work when they want to work. They work just as much or more than everybody else, but they can kind of dictate when they work. But yeah, when you do something like being a pro, you can't. So at some point, a lot of people, as they get older, they kind of figure that out, like, hey, being a pro is not what I want, or probably more often not what I'm capable of, but how can I still be involved in the industry? And that's how it was with me with skateboarding. I own a skateboard shop. I think that's way better than being a pro skateboarder.
Yeah.
I get to be home every day. I get to like have all the freedom with how I want to do everything I want to do, but there's no pressure on me to perform by any means, and I was never even kind of close to good enough to like think that was going to happen.
They're dedicating like all of their time towards that.
So what was it that triggered you to want to get back into racing when you said you were 17?
I guess I was just riding all the time on the weekends, and all my buddies were racing, and just wanted to get back at the track because it was always like it was always a good time.
Sure. And how seriously were you taking it then when you got back into it? What did training and, you know what I mean? Like what went into racing besides showing up that day?
Riding every night that I could, probably like 3 times a week.
Sure.
And then if I wasn't riding, I was just trying to pedal bike and just stay in shape, I guess.
Sure. Did you have to work out and like have a diet and all that type of stuff?
Never really dieted. I've always like been pretty healthy, I guess.
Sure.
But would always exercise, like try to cycle, just keep your endurance up.
Yeah. How did you get sponsors, or did you not have sponsors right away when you got back into it?
Didn't really have too many when I got into it. It was mostly just like reaching out to people here and there, and then maybe getting 1 or 2 things. But the dealership back home, they're like a huge help.
Sure.
And they've given us like pretty good discount on stuff.
Sure.
That was more than just bikes.
Did your parents pretty much help like fund all that? Because you didn't have time for a job then, did you?
Not until I didn't get a job until I was about 15, and then I was working like every summer and after school, whatnot.
Sure. What did you do for work?
Basically what I do now.
Oh, okay.
So pipe fitter.
Okay. So just for people who have an understanding, I'll summarize and we'll get back to it again. But you were racing pandemic hit and everything, and all of a sudden you got a job opportunity to be a pipe fitter. So that kind of took a lot of your time and energy, but you kind of had to go that route for a little while before you're going to be coming back to racing some more. But what is a pipe fitter? What is it?
So you got like, basically they have like those pipelines that everyone seems to hate.
Yeah.
But they're bringing that oil is coming to like a refinery.
Yeah.
And then it's basically broken down from crude into like gas, diesel, propane.
Yeah.
But there's just way more than just like refineries that have piping. I mean, everywhere you go, there's going to be piping.
Yeah.
It's kind of like plumber, but like industrial.
Okay. So you like dig up the earth to be able to put it in, or do you do like welding, or like what exactly do you do within it? I mean, I get it. You put pipes together.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean?
Like installing valves that could shut off the pipe, whatever the pipe is carrying.
Yeah.
And metering it all.
Yeah.
Boilers, stuff like that, installing them.
What went into learning how to do that? Did you have to go get like a 2-year degree at a tech or something? Or
Right now I'm in an apprenticeship. It's a
okay.
union apprenticeship. It's tech accredited, but it's through the union hall.
So it's paid.
Yep.
Awesome. Okay, so are you still living in Greenville? Where are you living?
I'm living in Greenville, but I'm staying up in Superior for work.
Sure. And you're traveling back and forth kind of all the time.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I just kind of wanted to like understand how all that works. So when you started racing heavy again, when you were 17, 18, were you able to still have a job? Like, were you still working?
Yep.
How did you balance that and have any kind of personal life at all?
I don't know if I'd say I'd have personal life.
So you didn't have, okay.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Well, it was lucky. I was pretty lucky though, because most of my friends were involved with racing.
Yeah.
So they were always there with me too. I guess that was my personal life.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I guess that makes sense. You know, kids who are in gymnastics or whatever, their friends are all the ones that they practice with. That's just kind of how it works. So what happened when you graduate high school then? Because you were really heavy into racing then at that point, right? Were you trying to pursue it full time? Were you still trying to be pro
following
or what?
year? Yeah, I never really tried to go pro, I guess. It was mostly going to the local races every weekend and trying to do like videos and stuff like that with it all.
Okay. Were you doing videos just for yourself? Like, were you trying to do videography as like that side of it, or was this when social media became part of like what you do?
Yeah, that was like when social media became a big thing.
Okay. And so what was your plan with it? Just to record and show people this is what riding's like, or were you more like on a comedic side? Were you trying, like, what were you trying to do?
Kind of like how we were just talking about pros, like they really don't have any time to do anything.
Yeah.
Well, like everyone wants to do that thing, but if you can somehow make it like fun, that's where like people that come in with the whole YouTube deal, they're kind of doing stuff just for fun and recording it all.
Yeah.
And then they're like sometimes making pretty good money off of it.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so there's the skateboarding channel called Braille, and it like super big. In the skateboarding world, there's a whole thing around it, you know. But whatever. But they had this series, I don't know if they still do, that a lot of people really like, called "If You Build It, We Will Skate It," something like that. And people would make skateboards out of like whatever, like
That's
glass
awesome.
or shovels or whatever the stupid thing was, and they would ship it to these people, and then they would skate it.
What the heck?
Which obviously is like stupid, but like entertaining.
I think I might have seen a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean, they got to be like massive. What's the biggest video? Like, which video did the best that you made of anything?
It was super stupid. There was just this video that I recorded with my brother at Pastrana Land. It was after like all of the racing that we were doing there, and pretty much after the day was done, him and I snuck away and we were riding like the back half of the track, and I posted this video that night that I was done like editing it. It was just a couple clips of me ripping around this track on a mini bike, a 110.
Oh, sick.
And probably like, well, that was in November or late October, and then come like March the following year, it like blew up and I got like 225,000 views on it or something.
Crazy.
Yeah.
What triggered it to blow up? Do you have any idea?
I think that was kind of when the pandemic started to hit, so people were just like watching everything they possibly could on YouTube.
That's a crazy thing with how all these algorithms work, though, right? And like, and the funny thing is, though, is people are always like, "Oh, you're so lucky if this one thing pops or whatever," and it's like, well, it's not the only thing you made.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of with the show too. It's like if I do enough episodes over time, eventually they get more and more views. The number of views when I go and look at statistics never goes down, obviously.
Yep.
And then one will pop and do 10 times as many views as others.
Same with like TikTok. It took me like a year before anything like started to go off, and then once it finally went, just like followers and likes and comments just started rolling in.
Yeah, I mean, I've never used TikTok. I know I'm a little bit older, I guess, but like everyone tells me I have to be on it, and I've never downloaded it.
It's probably like the fastest way to fame right now.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, however the algorithm works, it definitely like blows it up for people to be able to see things. Okay, so you started doing like videos and stuff. Was that then like, did you kind of have the idea that that's long term what you wanted to do, or was that always going to be something you wanted to just do more for fun?
It was more for fun. If it was going to like keep doing as well as it did those couple times, then I would consider it, but it was more just like my hobby, I guess.
Sure. How did you make money during all that time frame? Were you doing pipe fitting stuff literally this entire time?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
So basically since I was 16, it was the day before my birthday, my 17th birthday, that I got into the union.
Okay.
And then ever since then I've been doing pipe fitting. But like my previous job was like super laid back, and I was very grateful to have that because I would work from 5 to 3 Monday through Thursday. I'd have after 3 o'clock to myself.
Sure.
Same with Friday and the weekends. I never worked the weekends.
Sure.
So I had just all this time to
and you were able to go places
and still made good money doing all that.
Sure. And then you were probably limited though by that job from being able to go outside of the Midwest for races, right? Because it's not like you fly with your bike. You always have to drive.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. After being there for that long though, I was there for like 5, I think almost 6 years, and then they would pretty much let me go wherever I needed to if I wanted to leave for the weekend or a long weekend.
Sure. Did you meet Travis Pastrana?
Yep. Yeah, he actually came to Wisconsin 2019 to one of my brother and I. We have a friend that's like filmed a couple things with him.
Oh, cool. Does your friend do like motocross and stuff?
Yep.
Or, like...
He does trials bikes.
Oh, sure.
Him and his brother are pretty big into that.
Was that when Pastrana did the Nitro Circus thing like through the area? Because I saw Nitro Circus like kind of chaperoning for a kid over in the Twin Cities, and I feel like that was around that time frame.
I think it was. Yeah.
And Leah knows him too.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah, I think she worked with, or like
I think
worked
she
for
worked on Nitro Circus.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't, for whatever reason during that interview, I didn't like ask her details about it, which now I'm like kicking myself about it. How did money play then with racing? Did you ever get to a point where money was really coming in at all? Like how did social media play into how that helped fund it or any of that?
I would say most of like my sponsorships and brand deals, they were just like getting free things or getting like big discounts on stuff. I never really got money from it.
Sure.
Maybe like TikTok if you want to consider that an income, but the money you get from that is like so minimal.
Yeah, I mean, I have friends with millions on TikTok, and I don't think they make much money from it at all, which is crazy. I mean, one of my friends, I think she's got, I got one friend with 13 million. It's stupid, but I got another friend with like 600,000, and she has a full-time job. I don't think she makes any kind of significant money off of her TikTok at all.
I think a lot of the people that have that many followers are getting their money from like their clothing brands or whatever they're trying to promote.
Right, exactly. And that's where like the leverage comes in.
Or, like,
and that's
the whole
why
merch thing.
Right. And that's why I always explain to people why social media, it's funny. I mean, you're younger, so you grew up with social media being like a big thing. I grew up before it. So social media didn't affect like the social hierarchy when I was growing up. It does, because it didn't exist. So it was after I was a grown adult before that became prevalent at all. So for me, I don't think much of it. Social media to me is a tool, and it is a cool way that I've been able to connect with a lot of people. It's the reason that we're sitting here today, but have never put it on any kind of like ego social hierarchy thing.
That's definitely a big problem with today's society.
It's a huge problem with things, you know what I mean? And I can't, like, kids are so impressionable now that I was in my shop one time. I've told this story before, so I'll keep it brief, but I was in my shop one time, and two of the boys that would always kick it, which like I call them skate rats, because like there's different crops every year. There's another group of like kids that hang out at my shop all the time, and that's kind of the point, is my shop to be like a cool clubhouse type spot, But anyways, they were there one day, Only one of them was. The other one wasn't. And I asked the one where the other kid was, and he said, oh, he said he's hanging out with this girl, but that's not possible. And I was like, why not? And he goes, because she has this many followers, and he has this many. And I was like, what? Like, you can't date or like hang out with people out like with less followers than you? And he's like, not that many less.
What the heck?
Yeah. And I was like, that's a thing? Like, since when is that a thing?
I didn't even know that was a thing.
No, seriously though. And you put, with how impressionable kids are at that age, you know what I mean? Like, being able to putting that much pressure on them to do that is really, really tough, especially because doing outlandish things is how kids then get followers and stuff, right? You know, when they're at that age group. So it's kind of pushing them to be louder and louder and do things that they're probably uncomfortable with or wouldn't otherwise do. So yeah, I mean, it's a horrible problem. But want to quick thank the sponsors of the show, which I actually have quite a few people I've worked with. And I was telling you off mic, the cool thing is I'm pretty picky about who I like deal with sponsors, actually kind of to a fault where it takes away money that I could be making. So they're all really my friends. But I have Steve's Hemp at steveshemp.com. You can use the promo code PASSION. You get 20% off everything. And he does all kinds of CBD products, right? So he even has like dog treats, sleep gummies, you know, all that type of stuff. We actually did my own custom flavor of CBD, like tinctures with my logo and stuff on it. It was super tight. And then Hop and Barrel's been a big sponsor of the show for a long time. Justin and Brian are the owners of them. It's a brewery in Hudson. They just opened a second brewery over in Spring Valley. I think their sours are the best ones like ever, but they're pretty known for their IPAs and sours, and they're around Wisconsin quite a bit, but they're just like the homies. And then I also got Hetty Hut Eau Claire is a new head shop, like a new glass shop downtown, but they do a lot more than just like pipes and glass. They sell like local art, and like they have a whole table of just like local makers stuff, which is super cool. They're just kind of like cool downtown local folk. But the first thing they made was their isopropyl alcohol. That's a 99%. So it's a lot stronger than what you can buy in stores. So that way it actually cleans stuff out. That's kind of the point of it. And then Collab Eau Claire is the newest sponsor of the show. It's a collaboration workspace, if you can picture what that would look like. They're popping up all over the world. When I was in Thailand, they had places like this.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, so it's like a big office, but not for any specific thing. You pay, you know, whatever the membership is. Yeah, you pay a membership fee, kind of like a gym, you know, and then you can go in, 24-hour access, and there's desks and printers and everything's free, coffee and a whole lounge area, conference rooms, all that type of stuff. So Collab EC is the newest sponsor of the show, and those dudes are sweet. Adam's in charge over there, and I actually just did a photo shoot with him yesterday, and it was really cool because when you work at a place like that, you get to be around other, like all the other people that have memberships are also usually like single entrepreneurs and stuff. So
you can network pretty well.
Yeah, you network super well. I ended up sitting and talking for like an hour with this dude who owns a tiny home company.
Really?
Yeah, builds tiny homes exclusively out of like reclaimed stuff.
That's pretty cool.
That's all they do is like tear down buildings and stuff and use that to make sweet tiny homes.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm going to be interviewing for this season of the show. He'll also be on the season.
That's
so
awesome.
Yeah, people can look forward to that. That one's going to be dope. Anyways, what happened with like racing with the pandemic? Because you didn't stop racing immediately with the pandemic, but how did the pandemic affect, I know products wise it did, but how did it affect like the actual races themselves? Were they still going on? Were you still competing?
Yeah, they were still going on, and we were still going every one that we could. There was maybe like one or two that got canceled because of it. Just like each county or town had their own little deal, but
yeah, I mean, it was a huge X factor. Nobody knew, right? Yeah. So everyone was required to even wear masks like when they were outside at a lot of places, which now we know, like, as long as there's some distance and you're outside, you're golden, you know? But at the time, nobody knew what any of these things were. So all the festivals and everything were canceled.
Yeah, so in the beginning, I do remember that they weren't holding any races, but they were still holding practices on every week, like every race weekend. They would still let people come practice all weekend, but...
Sure. Why did you decide to, I know it's for the job, but can you tell a story of like, I'm sure it was hard to kind of walk away from racing for a little while, but why did you stop racing? Because that was not that long ago.
So I guess I came up to Superior in April of 2021, and I ended up getting like a hotel and then an apartment, and I didn't really have anywhere to bring my bike, and we were working 7 to 5:30, so I don't really have any time to work on stuff after work, and just like all my time was basically that, and then just to go home it's 5 hours. So
why did you take that job opportunity? Did you have to? Like, were you required to? That was just the next job for who, you know what I mean, the next job site for what you were already doing? Or was it like this is too good of an offer? Like, what was the deal?
It was too good of an offer, and I've always wanted to travel for work and just work in the field.
Sure.
So before I was working in a shop, it was just the same thing over and over,
Sure.
going to the same place.
Yeah.
And then this way, like, you're meeting new people, making way more money than what I was making, and
Sure.
then just seeing new places.
Yeah, well, and you're building more of a skill set, which can be used for a lot of things. You're still super young, and racing only lasts forever. I mean, ideally, right, you could do something where you're still around it all the time, you know, but you should still kind of have all those other things done. And I think everybody, like the college experience wasn't the same for people. I feel bad for kids now. Anders, this kid who's taken some photos for me recently, I was talking to him about it because he's a junior in college now. His experience wasn't what college is. College is like finally out of your parents' house, you have all the freedom in the world, going to parties and doing whatever. It's like that social experience of college is like more than half of what college is, and people didn't get to have that. And so for you being able to have the opportunity to move away, I kind of think everyone needs to at some point in their life to figure out who they are as adults without the direct influences of their parents and people they grew up with.
Yeah, just getting out of your hometown, you're gonna meet new people, and you're gonna end up seeing who your true friends are, and just
people you keep in contact with.
You appreciate it more too when you do go home.
What's your favorite thing about being up by Superior? Because it's cold up there. I went to college.
It is
in
cold
Duluth.
up there. It's been super cold this winter.
Yeah,
and like windy.
Yeah. What do you do with your free time? Like, do you snowmobile and stuff up there or no?
No, so I sold my snowmobile last year to buy a new one. Okay. And then I never ended up getting a chance to buy a new one. And then I did end up going to work up there, and I just figured it'd be best if I held off.
Sure.
But now this following year I should have one back again.
Sure.
But I ended up just going to the gym every day and kind of like fell in love with lifting.
Sure. Getting back into conditioning and stuff.
Yeah.
Sure. What a lot of people don't realize is a lot of these things, as you see people getting older, even if they have some numbers behind them on social media, doesn't mean they make money off what the sport is and they have to have a career. But that's how you know that somebody really loves what they're doing. The fact they put in that much energy into something that they don't even make money doing. Yeah. You know, that's the big thing. So what made you decide like you for sure want to keep racing? Because you said the plan is to get back in on the next season.
I guess I just miss being at the track every weekend. I miss riding my dirt bike a lot, and just being around everyone that's involved.
Sure. I mean, you have plenty of people. Yeah, and you have plenty of like years ahead of you. Like you're young, you can be riding for a long period of time. What is racing going to look like moving forward for you? When do you plan on like getting back into racing? Do you have to condition for a while before you get into it, or how does that kind of work?
I would say right now I'm pretty good to go back to racing. Maybe just like riding more, and I guess when I do get home, I don't know when that's going to be, but that's probably when I'll end up starting again.
Do you think that's going to be this summer? Or is
hopefully.
that like that's what you're pushing for anyways?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So what in general, as you come back and you do that, I mean, I'm guessing more looking like in the future, say people are going to go and follow you on social media or whatever. They just want to know what's happening with you. Where do you expect your life to go? What are you hoping for in the next, I don't know, year, 5 years, whatever? Like what way are you going?
I think I'm going to start racing every weekend again, and then just build my skills, and then as soon as I can, probably just with like the whole like YouTube deal, just keep creating videos. I ended up buying a nice camera so that I can film that stuff more myself, and then I always felt like I was pretty decent at editing, but I never had a good camera. I was always like, I'll film it with an iPhone or a GoPro, and then just try to make videos out of that.
Sure.
I ended up buying some nice equipment finally, and just start putting more time into that.
Sure. Do you like long term want to do that, or do you want to take like what you've learned from working with machinery into like working on bikes for people? Do you want to work within that community, or is that not really a priority anymore?
I guess it's not really a priority anymore. Just meeting people and having fun, really.
It's nice sometimes, like, if you make your passion into a career, and that's why I tell people, like, the show isn't necessarily for people that want to make their passion into a career. It's to incorporate my little spiel anyways, is I want to inspire people to find ways to incorporate their passions more into their lives. Doesn't have to be as a career. Some people find when their career is dependent, like their hobby, the thing they really care about,
Yep.
they have to make money doing it.
Yeah.
A lot of people find that kind of kills the joy of it. So sometimes it's nice to just have like a regular job that has this income, so that way you're just free to
Yeah.
go and do this without it having to be dictated by, I hope I make money from this sponsor.
Yeah, I think you
hope
need
do
to
this
just
thing.
have fun. Otherwise, you're going to end up getting into that rut.
Yeah, it's really easy to fall into that rut. There's been times where like burnout happens with me, where it's like money comes and goes when you're self-employed, like you'll make a lot of, as an example right now, I'm about to make a bunch of money because the snow's about to melt. So owning a skateboard shop, I always tell people, if I made the same amount of money year round as I make in April, May, June, I would drive a really nice car. But it's just, I make a lot of money in a short period of time, and then I have to kind of like make it last the rest of the time. But so even for me, I'll get in pinches where I'm like, man, I haven't been making money off all this work, and like hourly during that time frame, I'm making nothing. And sometimes you can get to burnout where you're like, why am I even doing this?
I think people just need to like not stress as much as about money, because once you do start making a lot of money, you're gonna realize that it's like, at the beginning it's like, oh wow, like I'm getting a lot, but then after time it's just the same thing over and over, and you're just going to realize that you're not having fun if you're continuously grinding.
Yeah. Well, money's like, so I made a lot more money before. When I was your age, I was the assistant manager for Verizon, and I was making more money than I needed, like for sure. And I don't think I've ever made that much ever since. But what I found was I would spend all that money trying to have good days off, because every day I went to work, I hated it.
Right.
You know what I mean? So that's all the money did for me, versus when I opened my own shop, I opened my skateboard shop when I was 23. When I walked away from regular work and I opened that shop, I knew I would have to be way more careful with my money. And I found that I didn't care about money anyways. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
Because I would just like I would ride a little cruiser skateboard down to my shop from my house and like hang out with my friends all day and make enough money to survive.
Way more enjoyable.
Dude, it was way better, And so it just like kind of woke me up to, I think anyone who does that, who makes more money and then drops down to do something, it helps them put it in perspective. Because otherwise, as you're growing up, you just climb that ladder. You know what I mean? And you're always trying to keep up with the next person. Your friends that you're around are people you're working with. So as they, get promoted, or as you get promoted and you're surrounded by those people, they have nicer houses, so you want to keep up with it. They have nicer cars, you want to keep up with it. The stuff they do is more lavish, so you want to go with them and keep up with all that.
Right.
So, but when you all of a sudden kind of drop away from that and you're doing stuff that you really care about, rather than just like going gambling or spending money on recreational things like that, it's like, oh, I don't really need money.
Yeah, not at all.
Not nearly as much as I thought anyways.
You definitely don't need money to do what you like love, I guess.
And there's ways to do things for way cheaper, right? Like with riding, you don't have to have the most expensive equipment.
No, not
you know
at
what I
all.
mean? You can find older used stuff and still get by. Maybe you're not going to be on ESPN like killing it, but you can still definitely compete and be a part of things without spending nearly as much.
Yeah, there's definitely no need for like all of that jazz.
Dude, same way with like making video content.
Yep.
Like having nice equipment is dope. Don't get me wrong.
You can, like I was just saying, you can do it with a phone.
Dude, the first episode, which I went back and recorded with Mike, so it sounded better, but the first ever episode of this show, the first time I recorded, I just set up my old MacBook Air, like the one I had, which was already old. I bought it used for cheap, with Audacity, a free program with the built-in microphones, and just hit record and recorded a podcast.
Yeah.
It cost me no money, and I could do it. There's no reason that I mean, nowadays I have to, like, having sponsors and making it more of a business. That's why I can do it on the quality that I do, because I put all this time and energy into it. But to get into it and be a part of this type of thing, it doesn't cost hardly anything. You can get into it for nothing. Going back to experiences, though, and I told you to think about these ahead of time, because this is my favorite part of the show. I think when you do things that you're really passionate about and it's not money driven, you get to have really cool experiences, which I've traveled all over the place, and I used to share one every episode, but like I said, I'm coming up on almost 100 episodes I've recorded, so I'm running out of sweet gems of stories.
I get that.
But anyways, for you, if you had to pick one story, can you share an experience of something you're really grateful for, but it only happened because you chose to pursue your passion for riding?
Yeah, I guess. So just from riding, I ended up meeting some really cool people, and they ended up inviting me to some cool events, and I ended up going on to meet Travis Pastrana, and ended up going to his house and was able to like do this whole little Pit Bike Pro Championship race. And then years to come, I mean, we've been doing it 3 years in a row now. I was able to go and participate in it, and he comes out every year.
Is that a race he throws like at his property, or what is the
it's actually race? So Phil Smaggi, he ends up doing it in His he has like a little cabin deal in Wisconsin.
Oh,
And
sick.
he's the one that's friends with Travis, and just like meeting him
Yeah.
and like, I don't know, just being in the whole community, he ends up inviting the people that he wants there. And then
Oh, it's like an invite only thing.
yeah, he tries to keep it pretty personal with
Yeah.
him, because obviously he's like always being surrounded by people. Everywhere he goes, people are asking him to take pictures, so he tries to keep it really like low key.
Sure. So there's no like people watching, like not a whole lot of people watching. It's just
No.
like all the homies there for
Yep.
fun.
Yeah.
How big are the bikes? Like what's the race like?
They're like little 110 pit bikes. They're
Sick.
like kids
Like-
bikes, but adults are riding them.
Oh, dope. So like that's what you made that video
Yep,
of like riding that
Yep.
thing around. How long is that race? And like do they give trophies and shit out for that?
They actually had I can't remember how much money it was, but it was a pretty big check for the winner of that.
Sick.
Yeah. But otherwise, just like it's all for fun.
Sure. I mean, that's the cool part is when you're in like some kind of a niche. The thing is like when all these people are just people. I'm sure Travis is too, you know. And as I've interviewed more and more people, I've kind of figured out that like as I meet people that are more successful or whatever, if you treat them like a person and you're not trying to get something out
Yeah.
of them, they appreciate it and they see that right away because almost everyone's asking them for something.
Yep.
And then they're just regular people and they're cool to be around. And then they tend to want you around.
Yeah, they don't want to be surrounded by people that are like looking for stuff from them.
Right, but if you just
They
treat
just
them like a
want
person,
friends.
that's what I'm saying. But they don't have any more friends than any of the rest of us do.
Right.
That's the crazy part. You'd think that they would have a million people, and it's like, no.
No, they're pretty small knit groups.
Yeah, exactly. So if you just like get close with them for the right reasons, yeah, you'll be around. I've
Yeah.
met and like became friends with a lot of people that I guess it's a weird terminology to say that they would be out of reach, but you get what I'm saying
Yeah.
from that.
No,
It'd be
exactly.
people you'd think you wouldn't be able to get a hold of, but it's like, nah, they're just like homies,
Yeah.
just kicking it. And if I'm not asking them for anything, like whatever, everything's all cool. On the flip side, I think you learn the most when you make mistakes, which people can say you never make mistakes because they're learning opportunities. That's the same thing. That's what I'm getting at. For me, I've listed them, talked to them before on the show, but just like how I had shown you how I save after each third of the show is because I've lost episodes because I didn't have enough room on my computer of memory
Right.
or because of whatever reason. And that's how I learned how to not have that happen in the
Yeah,
future.
you don't want that.
No. So hopefully you learn from the mistakes early. What's the story of a mistake you made that taught you something somebody listening might be able to benefit from?
I guess just worrying too much about what the future holds rather than just like you should live in the present and not worry about the past either, because you can't fix any of that.
Sure.
But
Yeah, I mean, it's the journey. Like they always say, you need to appreciate the journey, and I struggle with that a lot. And I've like read self-help books to try to figure out how to be better at that because I always have such high expectations. Like I'll talk to people and they're like, "Oh, the show's doing great," and I'm like, "Yeah, but like I want to be the biggest interviewer in the Midwest." Like not for like ego trips or for whatever else, but I think my show helps people,
Right.
and I just really enjoy doing it. But we don't have a major interviewer in the Midwest at all. Not in Minneapolis or Chicago or anywhere. Not on the level of like Seacrest, Howard Stern, like Joe Rogan, like that type of high level.
Yep.
We don't have anyone because all those types of people move. Anybody that would have been from the area moves to New York, LA, like
Right.
San Antonio now, I guess. But whatever, there isn't anyone like that, and that's where I want to go to. I want to be at that point. But because I'm looking at that place, that's what I view as like successful in my mind right now.
Yeah.
A lot of times I'll do really cool things and not think anything of it. And I got to like check myself. Be like,
Yeah.
what I did was just really awesome. Like I should be enjoying this. I should be celebrating this, Like I just won best local podcast for like you're not familiar with the things that happen in Eau Claire, I doubt, but volume 1's our major like media thing, in Eau Claire. It's like the magazine newspaper thing, and they do the Chippewa Valley Reader Poll, which is like the best of awards for the area.
Okay.
Right, it's like the bigger one everyone is a part of, and I won best local podcast again. I won it last year and I won it again this year, and yeah, I'm stoked, but I didn't even do anything. Like you'd think at the very least I'd be like, I need to go get drinks with friends tonight, or let's go get a cake made or something, or like to do something, but I didn't do anything of it because I just like it. Again, I don't want people to think it's an egotistical thing, but I just had the expectation in my mind of like, I should be good enough to
I'm
get
sure
that.
the first one was way better than winning the second one though too.
Yeah, kind of, but I did the same thing. I just like, I expect which it's good to have higher expectations to want to like strive for.
Yep.
But you gotta enjoy the moment.
Yeah, for
You
sure.
know what I mean? Otherwise, like, what's even the point of doing it? So I'm 100% with you there. Well, now that people listen to the show, they're gonna want to go check things out. So again, where can they find you? What platforms? What's your handle on them? How can they best like follow you that way? And then how could they best support you moving forward if they want to help, see you get more content or whatever? If they want to see you succeed, how can they help?
I guess on pretty much all my platforms, it's just Josh Remter.
Which is Remter, right?
Correct.
Just like it sounds.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, and I guess if you wanted to support me at some way, there's always my DMs, and I do have links in my bios for like other platforms as well.
Sure. Are you gonna do merch and stuff at some point?
I'd like to.
Yeah, I mean, you have to, like, for me, I have a Patreon for the show, and there's a lot of ways. I have a store. I mean, it's for my skateboard shop, but Passion as a brand kind of encompasses a lot of things, right? So you can just like go to my store and buy stuff. So that's like an easy way. But I have a Patreon, which if you're familiar with that, it's like a paywall system where you pay $5 a month and you get access to bonus episodes and early release to episodes. Like I interviewed Chris Cruzy for this season. If you're familiar with him, he's like a pretty big country musician. He was on that show, The Voice. He got second on it.
Really?
So he's like a billboarding artist. It's pretty dope. But his episode is already, as of like right now, it's already available to watch on a private YouTube link to my Patreon supporters. So I do giveaways. That's like one way that you can support me as well. Writing reviews for the show, that type of thing. If you have, on your YouTube, it makes a huge difference if people subscribe to it. And then even if it's just kind of obnoxious, but they want to help, if they just liked each video and dropped an emoji comment.
Yeah, comments and
would
just
still
interactions are huge.
Well, that's how the algorithm works.
Yep.
And like that's why I try to explain to friends. It's tough when you're promoting yourself. You don't want to come across as this egotistical person, but it's a business side of it. Like if you want this thing to keep going and get to the next level so you can continue to create, you need all of these types of things, which blows my mind that people that aren't using social media for any business reason, if it's just like their friendships and stuff, which is fantastic. I would prefer, if that could be my social media, I would prefer that. But people who do that and then really care about how many likes and comments they get, I don't really get it.
No.
I'm like, well, it doesn't.
Just more stress that you don't need.
Yeah, I don't understand it. What's the point? Because it is a lot of stress. But the reason that like when I post and I'll post my story like please like and blah blah blah, I know it sounds obnoxious, but that's how I'm able to fund the show. Like it has to be that way. When I reach out to sponsors, they ask for statistics and I have to show them.
Yeah.
I mean, it's the annoying side of things, but really like if you follow either of us and you like what we create, going and doing those types of things does make a huge difference. To end the show, well, anyways, thank you again for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I didn't even have to leave my house, so it's fantastic. I took my robe off. I put my sweater on instead, which is nice.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.